Hello and welcome to our new topic. Today we will discuss an important group of drugs very commonly used in the management of upper respiratory tract symptoms, particularly those associated with cough, nasal congestion, and mucus production. Although these symptoms are often caused by a wide variety of common conditions such as the common cold and flu, allergic rhinitis, sinusitis, or bronchitis, they can significantly affect patient comfort and quality of life. In clinical practice, patients frequently self-medicate with over-the-counter cough and cold preparations which often contain combinations of multiple drugs which we will discuss today. Surely, it is important for physicians to understand when these drugs are appropriate, how they act, what adverse effects can appear, and when these drugs should be avoided. So, let's start. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to achieve two main learning objectives. First, you should be able to describe the drugs used in the treatment of cough and cold. This means understanding the different drug classes commonly used in symptomatic respiratory therapy. Second, you should be able to classify these drugs and explain their mechanisms of action, adverse effects, and clinical uses. This includes understanding how drugs such as decongestants, antitussives, expectorants, and mucolytics work at the physiological and pharmacological level. In addition, you should be able to apply this knowledge clinically by deciding when cough suppression is appropriate, when mucus clearance should be enhanced instead, and when drug therapy should be avoided altogether. Remember that in respiratory pharmacology, treating the symptom alone is often not sufficient. We must always consider the underlying cause. Before discussing decongestant drugs, it is important to understand the difference between hyperemia and congestion, two vascular phenomena that are often confused. Hyperemia refers to increased blood flow into a tissue, usually due to arteriolar dilation. It is an active process and typically occurs during inflammation, exercise, or infection. Because arterial blood flow increases, the tissue appears red and warm, a condition known as erythema. In contrast, congestion refers to impaired venous outflow, which results in accumulation of deoxygenated blood. This is a passive process and may occur in conditions such as venous obstruction, heart failure, or local tissue compression. Congested tissues often appear bluish or cyanotic due to reduced oxygenation. In the nasal mucosa during infections or allergic reactions, the predominant process is hyperemia, which leads to mucosal swelling and obstruction of airflow. This swelling is what patients commonly perceive as nasal congestion. In addition, mucus glands would also be actively producing mucus as a non-specific mechanism to wash out the obnoxious stimulus causing hyperemia. This slide illustrates mucosal hyperemia in the upper respiratory tract. On the left, we see the normal nasal mucosa, where the blood vessels are relatively constricted and the airway is open. On the right, during conditions such as rhinitis or pharyngitis, the mucosal blood vessels become dilated and engorged. As a result, blood flow increases, tissue swelling occurs, mucus production increases. The combination of vascular dilation and mucosal edema narrows the nasal airway and leads to the typical symptoms of nasal obstruction, rhinorrhea, and difficulty breathing through the nose. There may be pain on swallowing. Pharmacologic therapy for congestion aims to reverse this vascular dilation by causing vasoconstriction of mucosal blood vessels. This is exactly how nasal decongestants work. Decongestant drugs are agents that reduce nasal mucosal swelling by causing vasoconstriction of blood vessels in the nasal mucosa. Most decongestants act as alpha-adrenergic receptor agonists. Common examples include phenylephrine, pseudoephedrine, oxymetazoline, xylometazoline, and nafazoline. These drugs stimulate alpha-1 adrenergic receptors located on vascular smooth muscle. Activation of these receptors causes vasoconstriction, which leads to reduced mucosal blood flow, decreased edema, and opening of nasal passages. As a result, patients experience improvement in nasal airflow and relief of congestion. However, their use should be short-term only because prolonged vasoconstriction can cause complications, especially when applied locally, such as mucosal atrophy. Decongestant drugs can be administered by several different routes. Orally administered agents include pseudoephedrine, which produces systemic vasoconstrictive effects. Topical nasal sprays include xylometazoline and oxymetazoline. These provide rapid local relief because they act directly on nasal mucosal blood vessels. Some decongestants are also available in ophthalmic preparations, such as nafazoline, for relief of conjunctival congestion. However, these drugs are associated with several important adverse effects. Because they stimulate adrenergic receptors, they may cause systemic effects such as hypertension, tachycardia, nervousness, and dizziness. One important complication is rhinitis medicamentosa, also called rebound congestion. This occurs when prolonged use of topical decongestants causes beta receptor-mediated mucosal vasodilation and congestion when drug concentration falls below the threshold concentration required to stimulate alpha receptors for vasoconstriction. Another reason is downregulation of adrenergic receptors, especially when such drugs are used for prolonged periods. Patients may become dependent on nasal sprays and experience worsening congestion when they stop using them. Therefore, topical decongestants should not be used typically for more than 5 days. Another important interaction occurs with monoamine oxidase inhibitors, which may potentiate hypertensive effects, especially when a mucosal decongestant is administered orally and undergoes systemic absorption. Cough is an extremely important protective reflex. Its primary function is to clear the airways of irritants, secretions, and foreign particles. This reflex helps maintain airway patency and protects the lungs from infection or obstruction. However, cough can become problematic when it is excessive, persistent, or non-productive. Clinically, cough is classified into 2 main types. A productive cough is associated with sputum production. In this case, coughing helps remove mucus from the airway and should generally not be suppressed. In contrast, a non-productive cough is dry and irritating. In such cases, suppression of the cough reflex may be beneficial. A key principle in clinical pharmacology is treat the cause, not just the cough. For example, antibiotics may be required in bacterial infections. Bronchodilators may be needed in asthma. Proton pump inhibitors may be used for GERD-related cough. Thus, symptomatic cough therapy should be used only when appropriate. This slide illustrates the physiology of the cough reflex. The reflex begins when sensory receptors in the airway detect irritants. These receptors include mechanoreceptors, chemoreceptors, and C-fiber nociceptors. They are located in the larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lung tissue. When stimulated, sensory signals travel through the vagus nerve to the cough center in the brainstem, located in the medulla. The brainstem then coordinates the cough response by activating motor pathways. These motor signals induce contraction of the diaphragm, intercostal muscles, abdominal muscles, and laryngeal muscles. The sequence of events includes deep inspiration, closure of the glottis, forceful contraction of expiratory muscles, and sudden opening of the glottis. This produces a high-velocity expulsion of air, which removes irritants and secretions from the airway. Many drugs used as antitussives act by suppressing the cough center in the brainstem. This slide reviews a set of important respiratory tract receptors and their importance in cough reflex in a variety of situations. Take time to explore it. Antitussive drugs are medications that suppress the cough reflex. They are primarily used in dry, non-productive cough. One major class of antitussives includes opioid derivatives, such as codeine, falcodeine, dextromethorphan, and noscapine. These drugs act centrally on the medullary cough center, reducing cough sensitivity. Among them, dextromethorphan is widely used because it provides cough suppression without the strong analgesic or addictive effects seen with opioids. Another antitussive is benzonatate, which acts as a local anesthetic on airway sensory receptors. By numbing these receptors, it reduces cough reflex activation. Some antihistamines may also reduce cough, particularly when cough is associated with allergic rhinitis or postnasal drip. However, antitussives should not be used in productive cough. because suppressing cough may prevent clearance of mucus and pathogens. This may complicate the clinical situation, such as predisposing to stasis of mucus and secondary bacterial infections. Pharyngeal demulcents, such as lozenges and honey, form a soothing and protective layer on the mucosa, reducing irritation. Mucoactive drugs are medications that alter the properties of mucus, making it easier to clear from the respiratory tract. These drugs are broadly divided into two categories: expectorants and mucolytics. Expectorants work by increasing the water content of airway secretions, which makes mucus thinner and easier to cough up. Examples include guaifenesin, potassium iodide, ammonium chloride, and sodium or potassium citrate. Mucolytics, in contrast, act by breaking down the molecular structure of mucus, reducing its viscosity. Examples include acetylcysteine, bromhexine, carbocysteine, and ambroxol. These drugs generally break disulfide bonds in mucoproteins, leading to reduced mucus thickness. These drugs are useful in conditions characterized by thick or excessive mucus, such as chronic bronchitis, COPD, and cystic fibrosis. Mucus contains mucin, a group of large glycoproteins produced by epithelial cells. Mucin plays several important physiological roles. First, it provides lubrication, which helps protect epithelial surfaces and facilitates airflow. Second, it maintains tissue hydration, preventing dryness of mucosal surfaces. Third, mucus serves as a protective barrier against pathogens and environmental irritants. It also has antimicrobial properties, helping trap microorganisms before they reach deeper tissues. In addition, mucus contributes to the mucociliary clearance system, where cilia move mucus upward toward the throat for removal. However, when mucus becomes excessively thick or abundant, it may impair airway function. This is why drugs that modify mucus properties are useful in respiratory diseases. To summarize today's lecture, upper respiratory symptoms such as cough and nasopharyngeal congestion are extremely common and are often treated symptomatically. Nasal decongestants work by stimulating alpha-adrenergic receptors, causing vasoconstriction of mucosal blood vessels and reducing swelling. However, prolonged use may lead to rebound congestion, a condition known as rhinitis medicamentosa. Cough is a protective reflex designed to clear irritants and secretions from the airway. Antitussive drugs suppress the cough reflex and should be used only for dry cough. Mucoactive agents improve clearance of mucus by either increasing secretion water content as seen with expectorants, or reducing mucus viscosity as seen with mucolytics. In clinical practice, the most important principle is always identify and treat the underlying cause of cough whenever possible. Symptomatic therapy should complement, not replace, etiologic treatment, and should be of short duration. This slide reviews a set of important cough reflex receptors and their potential importance in drug treatment. Take time to explore it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Happy learning!